Okay, let's now begin converting our index PSD file to HTML and CSS. Since the index page requires the most HTML and CSS to be coded at once out of all of the other PSDs, I'm going to break this up into two lessons. This lesson will cover the HTML, then in the next lesson we'll add in the CSS. Now the nice thing about the design that we're using is that we'll be able to use the same code that we'll build here for the index page with all of the other pages that we convert. So for each additional PSD to HTML conversion, we'll only have to worry about filling in the middle of the page's content, as all pages will share the same header, action bar, and footer. Let's switch into Photoshop and take a look at our index PSD file. Now, how I like to approach PSD to HTML conversions is to first lay out the basic HTML structure from top to bottom, while exporting out all of the required images at the same time. Then in the next lesson, we'll tackle styling the page. So we're going to start at the very top of our PSD here with our header. Now you can see we have the header folder over here. And if we hide and show the header folder, you can see that the header is actually broken into two sections. So we have this top part up here, and then we have the action bar right below it. So I'm going to be doing a lot of switching back and forth between Photoshop and my text editor so that I can take a look at the design and then to lay out the HTML structure. And we'll occasionally take a look in the browser as well, but there won't be much to see without some styling, as it'll be pretty bland looking until after the next lesson. So let's get started with this header. I'm going to switch into my text editor, and let's open up our index.html file. And let's start by setting the title for the page. Just going to use eCommerce -home. Then down here in our body, let's get rid of this boilerplate paragraph for us, as well as the comment, so we'll just delete that. And let's create a main wrapper div. So I'm going to give this an ID of wrapper so that we can center the site within the browser. Now I'm using a plugin called Emmet, which allows me to type CSS-like syntax to build out my HTML with classes and IDs, and when I hit Tab or Control E, it'll expand it and builds the HTML for me. So I'd highly recommend getting Emmet, as it makes things much quicker to put down your HTML. So this will create my wrapper div, and I'm just going to put a comment here saying end wrapper. Now inside of our wrapper, let's create our header. So I'm going to switch into Photoshop real quick, and you can see that we have these two sections. So we have the top area, and then we have this bottom area, which is the action bar. So let's start by creating our header tag, and inside of it, we're going to need two sections. So we need one section with an ID of top-area, and we need another section on the same level with an ID of action-bar. There we go. So in this first section, the top area section, I'll put a comment here saying end top area. Let's switch into Photoshop, and you can see that we need to put in the phone orders with the phone number and then the email address. So let's create a paragraph tag, and this will just say phone orders, and that's 1-800-0000. Then we'll put a vertical pipe or a vertical bar, and then we can set email us, and we'll create a link, and this is going to link to mail to, and then the email address is office@shop.com. So we'll set this to office@shop.com, and the linked text is also going to be office@shop.com, and we'll close the link. And that's it for the top area. Let's now do the action bar. So I'll put a comment here saying end action bar. Now in the action bar section, you can see that we're going to need our logo. So I'm just going to be creating this using CSS. We won't be using an image. Let's go back into our text editor. So to create the logo, I'm just going to create a div. Going to give this an ID of logo, and inside of it we want a link, and inside of that link I want to create a span with an ID of logo accent, And this will allow us to separate the E from the commerce part, so that when we begin styling, we can color the letter E. There we go. And let's just fix up the indentation a little bit. And I'm going to put a comment here saying end logo. And we'll just put a hash symbol in here for the link. And inside of our span tag, we'll put the lowercase e. And then inside of the link that's outside of the span, we'll put the word commerce with a capital C. And that completes the logo. Let's go back into Photoshop. Next, we need to create our Shop by Categories link. And this also needs to be a drop-down menu. As you can see, there's this little down arrow, which indicates that it should drop down. So if we take a look in our layers, and let's scroll down here, you can see we have this drop-down folder. If we turn that on, you can see the drop-down menu. Now I'm going to make my drop-down menu look a little bit different than this one, as we don't need to have 2 or 3 different levels of categories. We're only going to have 1 level of categories. So I'm just going to turn off the drop-down. Now before we code the HTML for the Shop by Category drop-down menu, let's get this little down arrow image. So I'm going to show you once how to extract these little icon images that we'll be using from your PSD. Then afterwards, you can use the same technique for getting each of the additional images that we may need. That way you don't have to watch me cut each image out. It's done the exact same way each time. So to get this little down arrow, the first thing we need to do is find this images layer. Now the easiest way to do this is just to select your Move tool by hitting V. That's also this little icon here at the top. And then at the top left, you'll want to check this box for Auto Select. And from the drop-down menu, make sure you choose Layer. With these options selected, you can then click on anything in your PSD and it'll auto-select its layer for you. So now we can just click onto the little down arrow and you can see that it has auto-selected that layer for us. Now that we have the layer selected, if we right-click it, we can choose Duplicate Layer, and from the document drop-down, we can tell it to duplicate it into a new file or into a new document. And then just hit OK, and that opens up this new document for us. Now in here, you may find it difficult to locate the icon as it's pretty small, so an easy way to find it and to crop it perfectly is to hold the Command key and then click the little preview of your layer. And this will select the arrow within the document. Then all you have to do is select the crop tool just by hitting your C key, or you can select the crop tool over here in your toolbar, and that automatically crops around your selection. Then to confirm the crop, you just hit Enter twice, and we can zoom in a bit here so you can see what it looks like. And you can see that it's grabbed that down arrow perfectly for us. Now we just need to save it out. So I'm going to save for web by hitting Shift Option Command S. And I'm going to be saving all of these little icons as GIFs. So it's going to be no dither with the transparency selected here. I'm using no transparency dither with colors at 256. And I'm just leaving it at its 100% size, its normal size. We'll choose Save As. And you'll want to save this into your web application. So mine's under Sites, Ecom PSD to HTML, and then inside of our image folder. And you can see that I've already saved the images out here. For this one, I just named it down-arrow.gif. So I've already saved it, so I'm just going to hit cancel, but you'll want to go ahead and save that into your image folder. And so you should be able to follow that same process for any of the other images that you may need to get from the PSD. Now that we have our little down arrow, let's go back into our text editor, and after our logo, make sure you're still inside of your action bar section. We're going to need to create a nav tag, and this is going to have a class of dropdown. And within the nav tag, we're going to need an unordered list and a list item tag. So this dropdown class will allow us to apply the same dropdown styling to other dropdown menus if we need. Now inside of our li tag, we need our first link. So if you look in the design, you can see we have this link of shop by category. So let's create a link. Just going to set the link to a hash, and it's going to be shop by category. We'll close the link. And then inside of our link, after the text, I'm going to put a space, and we're going to link in that image, the little down arrow that we just saved out. So we'll create an image tag. We'll set the source to image/down-arrow.gif. And I'll set the alt to shop by category. And that's it. So when we get to styling this list, we'll be able to hover over this first link, and it'll reveal another unordered list of links of our categories right below it. So I'm just going to fix up the indentation a bit here so I can see it a little bit better. And now inside of this first list item tag, let's create our nested unordered list for the dropdown. So we'll create another unordered list, and we need another list item tag. And let's add in some links for the different categories. So I'll just set the link to be a hash, and we'll have a laptops category. And then I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times. And let's change this one to be desktop PC. And then we have some smartphones. And lastly, some tablets. And that's it for the categories drop-down menu. Now we need to create our search form here. But my search form is going to look a little different than this one here, as it's not going to have the category drop-down menu for searching specific categories. Let's go back into our text editor. So outside of our nav tags, but still inside of the action bar section, let's create a div, and this is going to have an ID of search-form. And then inside of that div, we're going to create our form itself, and inside of the form, we're going to need 2 inputs. So we can create 2 of those, and I'm just going to fix up the indentation here a bit. And I'll put a comment here saying end search form. Now inside of the form tag, we're just going to have this submit to a hash. Then we'll set the method to get. Then we'll set this first input field's type to search. We'll give it a name of search. And we'll set a placeholder to say search by keyword. And let's also give this a class of search so that we can style our search inputs in the next lesson. Now let's change the second input here. Let's set its type to submit for our submit button. We're going to give this a value of search. And this one's going to have 2 different classes. So it's going to have the first one of search, and it's going to have another one called submit. And that completes our search form. Let's go back into Photoshop. And if we scroll over, you can see now we need to create our user menu. Now this user menu can actually be in 2 different states. For this first one, you can see that the user is logged in. And if we click on this and we look in here over in our layers folders, you can see that we have, let's see, where'd it go? There we go. You can see this is the action bar alternative. And if we turn that one off and turn on the first action bar, you can see this one is for allowing the user to sign in. Now this user menu is also a drop-down menu. So if we open up the action bar folder and we go into the user folder, you can see that we have a drop-down folder here. And if we turn that on, here's our drop-down menu. Now I'm going to make mine look a little bit different than this. And I know I said in the first video that I wouldn't give the user a drop-down menu, but I've changed my mind as I think that would be good to have. So I'm going to turn off the drop-down. And now if you notice, our user menu here has this little user icon. So make sure to export that image out using the same technique that I showed you on exporting the little down arrow from the categories drop-down menu. And I just named my image user-icon.gif. So if we go into Sublime and I open up my image folder, you can see here it is user-icon.gif. So for the user menu, we're just going to be creating a drop-down menu. And we'll be able to duplicate our categories drop-down menu for the user sign-in menu as well. So I'm just going to copy the whole categories drop-down menu. That's the whole nav tag. And after our search form, yet still inside of the action bar section. I'm going to create a new div with an ID of user-menu, and let's put a comment here saying end user menu. And inside of here, we'll paste in our drop-down menu. Now I'm just going to fix up the indentation a little bit. And now for this drop-down menu, I'm going to add an ID to the nav tag. So I'm going to give this an ID of sign in, as we'll need to target this drop-down menu specifically in the CSS in the next lesson. So let's change the first link here to show that user icon before the linked text. So we'll stick in another image here. We'll set the source to image/user-icon.gif, and we'll set the alt to sign in, and that's it for the image. Now I'm going to put a space, and let's change the linked text. So instead of it saying shop by category, let's have this say sign in, and then we'll leave the little down arrow after the sign in text. And now down here in our nested links, we're only going to need 2 of them. And I'm just going to change this one to say sign in, and this one will say sign up. And I'm also going to change this alt tag here from shop by category to sign in. So that takes care of the first state of the user menu to allow our users to sign in or register. Now the next state is when the user is already signed in. So I'm going to copy this drop-down menu, just the nav tag, and still inside of our user menu div, I'll paste it in again. And then I'm just going to comment out the sign in nav menu. And for the logged in user menu, I'm just going to get rid of the sign in ID. And then down here in our link, I'm going to change the alt text to be the logged in user's name. We'll just hard code this in of Andrew Perkins. Then we'll change the linked text to say the user's name. And we'll change this one as well, the other alt text to Andrew Perkins. And for our drop-down menu links, let's change the first one to say order history. And the second one will be the user's wish list. And then I'm just going to duplicate this one. And the last one will say sign out. All right, that's it for our user menu. Now we need to create a link to view the shopping cart. So make sure to export out the little blue shopping cart icon. Let's go back into our text editor, and you can see that I just named that as blue-cart.gif. Now you may have noticed that this is supposed to be a drop-down menu as we have the little down arrow here, but I'm not going to turn this into a drop-down menu. I'm just going to have it say view cart, and that would take them to a separate page to view their shopping cart. So after our user menu div, yet still inside of our action bar section, I'm going to create a div with an ID of view-cart, and inside of it we want to have a link, and inside of that link we want to have an image for the little shopping cart image. I'm going to fix up the indentation here. And let's put a comment here saying end view cart. And this will just link to a hash symbol. And the image source will be image/blue-cart.gif. And the alt text will say view cart. Then after the image, yet still inside of the link, we'll put a space. And the linked text will just say view cart. And with the view cart finished, that completes our header. Let's now take a quick look at it in the browser. Just going to switch into Firefox. And let's go to our web page. So that's localhost, ecom, PSD to HTML, index.html. And here it is. It's not too great looking at the moment, but we have everything. We have our logo, we have our 2 drop-down menus, our search form, and we even have our little icons. All right, let's move on. Let's go back into Photoshop. And now let's mark up the promo section here in the middle. So let's first get this image here for the promo section. And since this one is going to be a little different than getting the icons, as I'm going to be resizing this image, I'll actually show you how to pull this one out. So if we select our Move tool and make sure you have auto select and the layer for the dropdown. We can then click on one of the products, and that auto selects the layer for us. And so you can see that's inside of a folder named image1. So if we close that up, you can see that we have actually 3 image folders here, image 1, 2, and 3. So you want to select all 3 of them. You can click on the first one, image 1, hold down shift, and then click on image 2, and that'll select all 3 for you. Then we can right click them and choose duplicate layers. We're going to duplicate this into a new document and hit OK. And here's our new document. And with those 3 layers still selected, I'm going to right click and choose merge layers. And that just leaves us with this one layer with everything from those folders merged into it. Now I want to resize this image down just a bit, as it's currently a little too big for the width that I'm going to make the site. Currently the design is at 1300 pixels wide. That's the entire design of the site. It's 1300 pixels wide, but that makes me have to side scroll on my current resolution. So I'll be making our site 1152 pixels wide. Now to resize it, first I'm just going to show the info panel here. You can just click this little eye icon, and then with the layer selected, we can hit Command T, and holding Shift and dragging from one of the angles, the top left or the bottom left or the bottom right, wherever you want to drag from, I'm going to resize this down to about 660 pixels. It doesn't have to be exact, just somewhere in there. And once you have it resized, you can just hit Enter to confirm the resize. And now, just like normal, we're going to command click the preview of our layer to select it. Then we choose our crop tool and we hit Enter twice to do a perfect crop. Now I'm just going to save this. And for this one, I'm going to save it as a PNG 24. Make sure that you have transparency checked there. And this is a little big in file size, but we want the transparency. So I'm just going to leave it alone. And we just hit save. And now I've already saved this previously, but you can just name it promo.png. And you would choose save here, but I'm just going to hit cancel since I already have it. And let's close this out. Now let's go back into our text editor. And now outside of our header tag, yet still inside of our wrapper div, let's create a new section tag. And I'm going to give this an ID of promo. And inside of it, we'll need another div with an ID of promo-details. And this is going to hold an H1 heading plus a paragraph tag and a link for our button. And this link's going to have a class of default-btn, just short for default button. And then lastly, we need an image that's on the same level as the promo details div. There we go. And I'm just going to put in my comments here. This ends the promo details, and this one ends the promo. And if we switch back into Photoshop, we can see that we need to put this heading of today's deals, then this paragraph saying check out this selection, and then the word shop now on our button. So let's go back into our editor, and I'll scroll down a bit. And inside of our H1 header, let's have this say today's deals. And the paragraph will say check out this section of, then we'll put a BR tag to break the paragraph down onto a new line. Then we'll finish up the paragraph saying products at a discounted price. Now for our link or our button, let's just have this link to a hash symbol, and the linked text will say shop now. And then the image is going to display our promo image that we just saved out. So that's under the image folder, and it's promo.png. And we'll set the alt text to say promotional ad. And that's it for the promo section. Let's switch into our browser and refresh the page. And here we go. Doesn't look too great at the moment, but it will in the next lesson once we get the styling in here. But at least we know it looks proper for now. Let's go back into Photoshop. Now we need to create the main section of the page. Going to just close out the info panel here. So this section is going to display the 4 featured products. Now, we won't be creating the view selector here, or the navigation arrows on the right, or the star rating system, so you can ignore those. But you should go ahead and export out the computer icon, which I saved as product.gif. You're also going to need this little white shopping cart icon, which I saved as white-cart.gif. And you'll also want the little blue check down here, which is the wish list icon, which I saved as wish.gif. So we're going to need to have HTML for our featured heading, and then 4 products, each with a button, and the title and the description, and the wish list link. So let's switch into our text editor. So outside of the promo div, yet still inside of our wrapper div, let's create a new section. I'm going to give this an ID of main-content, and this will hold an h2 heading, plus an HR tag to separate the heading from the products, plus a div tag with an ID of products, and that'll just hold all of the products. And inside of this products div, we're going to need a div for each product, but we'll just start with one div for now, and we'll duplicate it to add in the other products later. And now these product divs each need a class of product. So let's expand that, and I'm just going to put a comment here saying end main content and end products. So let's switch into Photoshop to see what we need. We're going to need featured for our H2 heading. We need the products image. We need the title, the description. We're going to need the availability of whether it's in stock or out of stock. We're going to need our add to cart button. And then lastly, we'll need this add to wish list link. Let's go back into our text editor, and let's put the word featured into our H2 heading. And inside of our products div, let's create our first product. And let's start with the products image. So we're going to want this image to be a link so that we can view that product on a different page. So let's create a link, and inside of it, we're going to want to have our image. And that image is also going to have a class of feature so that we can add some styling to it in the next lesson. So this is just going to link to a hash symbol for now. Let's set the source to image/product.gif. We'll set the alt text to just say product. Now let's create the product's title. We'll use an h3 tag, and inside of it, we'll want to have a link so that the title will link to the product's view page as well. So this is just going to link to a hash symbol for now, and we'll set the linked text to say this is the product title. Now after our title, we need the product's description. So I'll just create a paragraph tag, and this will just say this is a short description. And let me scroll down a bit. And I'm just going to copy the description, and I'll paste it a few times in here to make the description a little longer. Now, after the description, we need to set the availability of whether the product is in or out of stock. So I'm going to put this into an h5 tag, and then inside of it, we want to have a span tag with a class of in stock. Now, we'll also use an out of stock class as well, but we'll get to that later on in the lesson. So let's expand that. And so before our span tag, at the beginning of the h5 tag, we'll put the words availability, and then a space, and then inside of the span, we'll put the words in stock. This will allow us to style the in stock text differently than the availability text. Next, we're going to need the link for our add to cart button. If we switch into Photoshop, we can see our button here, and this shows both the price of the product as well as the white shopping cart icon, and then the text add to cart. Let's go back into our text editor. So after our availability, let's create a paragraph tag, which will hold a link, and this is going to have a class of cart-btn. That's just short for cart button. And inside of the link, we need a span tag to hold the price of the product. So we're going to give this a class of price. And then on the same level as the span tag, we're also going to need an image tag. Let's fix up the indentation here a bit. So we'll just link to a hash for now, and we'll add in the price of the product of $499.08 within our price span tag. Then we need to set the image source to use our white cart GIF. So that's image/white-cart.gif. And we'll set the alt text to say add to cart. And I'm going to break this image down onto a new line as well. And we're going to want to make sure that we have a space between the price of the product and then the little white cart GIF. And then after the image, or after the white cart GIF, we're going to want to put another space. And now we want the text of our button. So it's just going to say add to cart in all caps. And that completes our add to cart button. Now we just need to create the add to wish list link. Let's go back into our text editor. And after our button's paragraph tag, we're going to need another paragraph. And I'm going to give this a class of wish. And then inside of it, we need a link. And inside of that link, we need an image tag to hold the little blue check for the wish list. Let's expand this. And I'm just going to fix up the indentation a bit. Let's set the image's source to image/wish.gif. Let's set the alt text to say add to wish list. And I guess I'll break this down onto a new line as well. And let's put a space. And now the text for the link will say add to wish list. So that's it for the first product. Let's now duplicate this to create 3 more. So let's just select the div here for the product all the way down to the closing div. And then we can paste it in 3 more times. Now I'm just going to change the length of the descriptions for each of them. So I'm going to make this one really short. And then for the third one, I'll make it kind of short. And let's also set this one to be out of stock. So we're going to change the availabilities spans class to be out of stock. And we'll change the text to say out of stock. And let's scroll up to the other one here. And we'll make this one just a little bit shorter. And that completes our 4 featured products. Let's switch into the browser and take a look. We'll refresh the page. Let's scroll down. And here's our 4 products. All right, we're almost finished. Let's switch back into Photoshop. Now we just have to finish up the footer. So you can see that the footer actually has 3 different parts to it. We have the contact information here at the top. We have a section here in the middle with some links and a newsletter sign up, but we won't be using the newsletter. Instead, we're just going to center these links. And then at the bottom, we have the copyright information on the left. Then we have these 2 sections here on the right for connecting with us and the supported payment methods. So let's start with this contact section first. Now you can see that our products and the contact section are separated by this horizontal rule. So we don't want to forget to add that in. Let's switch back into our text editor and let's scroll down here a bit. And after our main content section, yet still inside of the wrapper div, let's put our HR tag. And it looks like I haven't closed my comment here, so let's fix that up. There we go. And now after our HR tag, let's create our footer. So we need a footer tag, and inside of it, it's going to hold a section with an ID of contact. And then inside of this section, we'll need an H3 heading, and inside of the heading, we're going to want a BR tag so that we can split the contact text in half. And we also want a link inside of that heading as well. So let's expand that. And I'm going to put a comment here saying end contact. So if we switch back into Photoshop, you can see that we need to add in this message here with the phone number and the email address. So let's go back into our text editor. And inside of our H3 heading, before the BR tag, let's put in some text saying for phone orders, please call 1-800-000. Then we'll put a period and the word you. And then after our BR tag, we'll finish the rest of the text. So this part will say, can also email us at, And then for the link, it's going to be mail to office@shop.com. And the linked text will be office@shop.com. And that's it for the contact section. Now let's do the link section here in the middle. And again, we won't be doing the newsletter form, so we're just going to be putting in the links, and then when we style it in the next lesson, we'll make sure to center these links on the page. So we have 3 sets of links here. We have My Account, Information, and Extras. We won't be using all of the links, but we will be using some of them. Now you should also export out this little right-facing arrow. We won't actually be using it until the next lesson, as we'll be applying it to the bullet list item using some CSS, but you can get ready for it in this lesson if you'd like. I named the image right-arrow.gif. So let's switch back into our editor, and after our contact section, yet still inside of our footer, let's put another HR tag here to separate the 2 sections. And now we're going to need a section tag, and I'm going to give this an ID of links, and this will just hold all of our links. And then inside of it, we need a div with an ID of my-account, and inside of the div, we need an H4 header, plus we need an unordered list to hold the links. And inside of the unordered list, we're going to need 5 list item tags for each of our links for the My Account section, and we want to make sure that there's a link inside of each of those 5 list item tags. So that one's kind of tricky, but let's just expand this. And here's our HTML, and I'm just going to put a comment here saying end links, and one here as well saying end My Account. So let's switch back into Photoshop. And we need this to say My Account in all caps, and then we need most of these links here. So let's go back into our editor, and let's set the text for the H4 heading to say My Account in all caps. And we'll have all of these links just linked to a hash symbol. And let's set the link text to be sign in, and the next one will be sign up. Then we need one for the user's wish list and their order history. And lastly, the shopping cart. And that completes our list of My Account links. So we can just copy this one. We'll copy the whole div for My Account, and I'll just paste it right below it. I'm going to change its ID to say info. We'll change the H4 heading to say information, and we only need 2 links for this one, so we'll get rid of these bottom 3. And let's change this one to say terms of use, and the last one will be the privacy policy. And let's change the comment to say end info, and let's copy this div as well for the last one, which are the extras. I'm going to change its ID to extras. I'll change the heading to say extras in all caps, and we'll change the links to say about us, and the last link will be contact us. And let's change the comment here to say end extras. And that's it for the links section. Let's switch back into Photoshop. And now we just have to finish up the final section of the footer, this bottom part here. So you'll want to go ahead and export out the Twitter icon, which I named as twitter.gif, and the Facebook icon, which I named as fb.gif. And you'll also want to get the credit card icons. I just exported these out as one big image rather than separately, and I named that image payment-methods.gif. Let's switch back into our text editor, and after our links section, let's put in a new HR tag here. And now let's create a new section tag, and this is going to have a class of clearfix, as we're going to be floating a few elements inside of this div, and this clearfix class is a utility class given to us by the HTML5 boilerplate that we're using, and it'll help with clearing our floats that we'll use in the next lesson. So let's expand that, And let's go back into Photoshop real quick. And so you can see this bottom part has three different parts. We have the copyright area on the left, we have the Connect With Us section, and then the supported payment methods section as well. So let's go back into our text editor, and inside of our new section with the ClearFix class, let's create three different divs for those three different areas. So we need one div with an ID of copyright, then we need another div with an ID of Connect, and then our last div will have an ID of payments. So let's go back into Photoshop again, and let's start with the copyright section first. So we're going to need to put the logo in there and a description of the store, and then the copyright information. Let's go back into our text editor, and inside of the copyright div, I'm going to put a comment here and say end copyright. Now for the logo, we can actually use the same logo HTML that we used in our header. So let's go up to our header, and here it is. So we can just copy the entire logo div. Let's go back down, and let's paste it into our copyright div. Now I'm just going to fix up the indentation. Now after our logo, we need a paragraph for the store description and the copyright information. So let's create a paragraph with an ID of store-description, and I'm just using DESC for short. And then we need another paragraph with an ID of store-copy for the copyright information. So the first one is just going to be, this is a short description of the store. And the second one will display a copyright symbol, and then we'll put the year of 2013, and then the name, eCommerce, and then theme, designed by Adi Perdila. And that's it for the copyright information. Now let's do the Connect With Us section here. Let's go back into our text editor, and in the Connect div, I'll put a comment here saying end connect, and let's create an H4 heading, plus we'll need an unordered list. And inside of that unordered list, we're going to need two LI tags, and they should both have a link inside of it. Let's set the H4 heading to Connect With Us, and we'll give the first list item tag a class of Twitter, and this is just going to link to a hash symbol, and the linked text will say Twitter, and then the second list item tag will have a class of FB for Facebook, and we'll put a hash symbol for the link, and the linked text will say Facebook. So we'll be using these two classes here to target these LI tags individually in the next lesson to apply the Twitter and Facebook icons. Now lastly, we need to put in the supported payment methods. Let's go back into our editor, and here in our payments div, I'll put a comment here saying end payments. And we're going to need an H4 heading plus an image tag for the payment methods image. So the heading is just going to say supported payment methods in all caps. And the image source is going to image/payment-methods.gif. And the alt text will say supported payment methods. And that's it. We're finally finished with the HTML. Let's jump into our browser and take a look. Let's refresh the page. Let's scroll down past our 4 products. And here's our footer. So we have the contact section, we have our links, and we have the copyright section, Connect With Us, and the supported payment methods. Now I know this is not very pleasing to look at the moment, but don't worry, in the next lesson we'll make it look nice and pretty by adding in the CSS. So I'll see you there.